Okay, I am going to do a yeast levain. And why I'm not doing a sourdough levain is, the sourdough starters take a lot of babysitting. And so I do the yeast levain. The Einkorn flour helps us. It is so much easier to digest. It's still a great flour even when using the yeast levain. So here on page 14 of that cookbook, you can see the directions here for the yeast levain. Now, I'm not going to say anything till as we go through it, and there's just some things to watch out for as we do it. But the first thing that I use so much is this scale. You know, they're not super expensive. I've had this one for a long time. If you've never used a digital scale before, this entire cookbook uses grams. I'm trying to think if it uses grams exclusively. It does. Uses grams exclusively. And so many cookbooks use both, and if they have both, I still use grams because it is the most accurate, especially if you're doubling a recipe. If you're gonna double, you double it with grams and it'll be the most accurate. So the thing that I like most about using the digital scale is, let's say for instance, I am going to measure the water first, which is 130 grams of warm water. Well, every time I've done this, I've been able to use just bottled water, which is not refrigerated. Okay, so what I do is, I'll turn it on. Every digital scale will have a tare. I use the tare after I turn it on. And this is what I do my levain in all the time. And then I can pour it into the bigger bowl that I'm using. So it's weighing it right now. Let's see, I don't know if you can see that, but it's weighing in it. So the tare is going to zero it out. Right now it's in ounces. I'm changing it to grams. It's now on grams. So I'm going to put in here the 130 grams. Let me fix my camera. And you don't, whenever you're using yeast, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, you do not want to use chlorinated water. So a reason why I'm using the bottled water, the chlorinated water can tend to kill the yeast. Okay, so we have 130 grams of water in there. Now, the recipe says a pinch of dry active yeast. It does say 1 pinch plus a 1/4 teaspoon, but that 1/4 teaspoon is for later. So I'm gonna do just a pinch. You can see that fall in there. Okay, so we're mixing the pinch of yeast and water together until the yeast dissolves. And I typically do that with a fork. And because you can also kill the yeast if the water is too warm. I've certainly experienced that as well. Okay, so then the only other thing that we add at this point is the flour, which is 120 grams of all-purpose flour. It also has the measurement for if you're going to use whole grain. Okay. Now what I'm going to do right here and now is I'm going to measure out, here's my yeast, a 1/4 teaspoon. Now if you don't do it now, maybe you're not as bad as me, but if you don't do it now, you might forget to do it later, which is in the morning or whenever you go to use this for your dough. The tricky part is it doesn't go in now, it's only the pinch. So I set this in here for the morning, and I'll cover it up and set it right beside my bowl so I don't forget, because you have to put it into the bowl before you do anything with your levain. That 1/4 teaspoon goes into the levain before it is mixed into the dough you're prepping. Okay, so now we're gonna do 120 grams of flour. We're gonna add that and come right back. Okay, so now I'm going to be measuring the flour into this same pot. I'm gonna hit the tare. We're on grams, we're back at 0. We're gonna measure the 120. And then we'll be stirring it with a wooden spoon. Pretty well have a feel for how much flour that's gonna take. We're already halfway there. We're at 107, 16, 117, 118, 19, 120. So now we don't need the scale anymore, and then now we're just gonna stir it with our wooden spoon. And we're just gonna make sure it's stirred in really well, and then cover it with saran wrap overnight, and it'll be ready to use in the morning. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use this till Wednesday, and so it will be going into the refrigerator in the morning. Not now, but in the morning after I add the last 1/4. No, I think it'll go into the fridge. Oh gosh. And as a levain, and not with the 1/4 teaspoon of yeast until right before we're using it for a dough. Okay. And so in the morning, I'll do another video showing you, I know I've done it once before, I thought, showing you the bubbles. So in the morning there will be bubbles, and that tells you that the levain is ready. But then usually I use it right then, and I make my dough and I use it. But I'm gonna be putting it in the refrigerator, which I read in a different cookbook, which is an Italian baking cookbook. They use something similar that they call bigas. I think that's the word. There we go, nice and tight, ready to sit out overnight.